Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name's Emily, for those who haven't been here before. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here. Thanks for tuning in, stopping by. Today I want to talk about the power of programming. And really, what do I mean by that, right? We know that computers and phones, they have programs. But have you ever considered about the programs that run inside your human being? Now, for those of you who aren't yet familiar with the true nature of reality on here, I ask for your patience, because the topics and themes that some of these inspired chats are going to come from are really future kind of oriented, really, in a way. And the reason why I choose to speak about it now, well, for one, a lot of this stuff has come back into my mind after years of it being shoved in a box. And I'm actually feeling really drawn to bring my spiritual weirdo out of the closet. I was born in the 90s. What I was born with in here, the world wasn't ready for it. I was meditating from a very, very young age, tuning in, receiving all kinds of guidance. But I was born into a home that was not spiritual in any which way. And I know that's the same for a lot of us. There are a lot of beings on the planet that are born into families with such a huge amount of spiritual knowledge, but it hasn't had anywhere to go. So for many of us, like me, we had to shove that part of us in a box and maybe even call it strange, weird, like there was something wrong with you, because I know I certainly did. No one in my family ever meditated. No one ever talked about life beyond the planet. And there's lots of life beyond the planet. I remember lots of it. More of that to come. So whenever I would speak on the things that I could see, the spirits that I could see, the words that were coming in from places up there, I would just get laughed at, joked, teased. And over time, this had a really negative effect. I started to think that maybe I was really strange and that there was really something wrong with me and I must be broken. And I believed that for the longest of times. Now, how does this all relate to programming? Well, let's go back into the birth, not the birth of a child, but let's say that when a child is born, one way to look at this beautiful, gorgeous little baby is that you've got a fresh computer. It's got no programs. It's a blank canvas. Now, how the human mind works and the psyche is that throughout our life, through what we see and experience and feel, these create frameworks in here and in here that we then go on to operate from. Some for good, some not so good, and some really, really challenging. Which is why we have a whole world at the moment talking about mental health. My mental health isn't good. I have this mental health. I have this mental health. And trust me, I've got a whole list of labels of mental health diagnoses that I've been given over the years. And they have helped me in some regard move into acceptance of what is. But ultimately, I believe that the mental health framework is the reason why it's so big is because we actually are lacking the knowledge and the practices and the know-how on how to operate this human being. correctly. And you'll see, if you follow my channel from here on out, you'll get to understand all of the ways in which we can actually start to utilize our bodies in the ways, and the mind in the ways that it's designed to. So I'm going to talk about my own programming for now. And you can see how programming has such power. Let me tell you, my programming inside me has caused so much dysfunction in my personal, intimate relationships. It's untrue. That doesn't mean that I was doing anything wrong. It's just the process of allowing this programming to play out, and hopefully at some point knowing how to reverse that and get back to baseline, which is where you find me right now. So life runs in 7-year cycles. So when you're looking at a child, its first 7 years are fundamental. Now, maybe you'd like to play along with this and just think about all the things that you experience within your first 7 years. Now, parents aren't perfect. And even if you try and be the most perfect parent, you're going to cause a little mess up in your child at some point. And I believe that that's the soul contract that you have. We'll get more onto soul contracts as we divulge and develop this channel. I'm trying to start off easy. I'm trying to start off at a baseline where everybody can follow along. So those first 7 years are what creates the foundation of your programming. Now, for myself, I remember choosing this life. I remember choosing, trigger warning, lots of accounts of sexual abuse. And we'll go into why in other videos down the line, but my soul made that choice. My soul knew that that was a challenging experience to go through and would struggle to break out of it. Now, let me tell you, I'm 34. I'm still working through many of the programs that exist. The programs aren't me, and the programs that exist inside you are fundamentally not you either. They are just markers and a tangible representation of what you've already been through. The challenge is breaking out of it, am I right? Those first 7 years are like the foundations you would build a house upon. Now, if those foundations are not set and they are uneven, the next few layers are all going to be wonky. And this is where a lot of us now are in times going, I've got this mental health, I've got this challenge, because fundamentally our programming is out of alignment with who and what we really are. In my first 7 years, I had a mum and dad that would argue all the time. My nervous system was constantly tense. And it's only in the last year that that nervous system has settled, which basically means for over 3 decades, I have lived inside this body with a really highly anxious nervous system. There's been a program in my body causing all of this stress and anxiety. And anybody that struggles with anxiety, and extreme anxiety is what I had for years, will know it's no easy feat to overcome. Because within that we feel embarrassed and we feel like we should be further along and we should be able to cope. And when we should ourselves, we shit on ourselves. Because we're identifying with a program that isn't ours. And I apologize now if you're struggling to follow along. I really am going to rely on feedback on my videos so that I can make things clear. Because part of my mission here on earth is to be a support for those who have experienced the most horrific of traumas. Because I understand what it is like to be victimized by these experiences, to be identified with these experiences, and what it's like now to live on the other side of this programming. And it has been the most gut-wrenchingly painful and heart-expanding journey I have ever been on. And I have had no guidebook. I've had no guide to guide me through any of this. I've had to learn to listen and learn to accept and trust what my soul has been pulling me forward to. And I can tell you, I've been gone from one extreme to the other. 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 4 steps forward. And I've just been doing this all my life. But I now feel like the programs I am now operating on and within are supportive for more forward movement. And that's what my intention is for this channel and for you, to receive some piece of information, a nugget, a piece of inspiration that helps to open your mind to the different potentials. So going back to this childhood and this 7-year cycles, right? Let's say you had a relatively good first 7-year cycle, but then 7 to 14, as we all know, that's when our hormones start to kick in and it becomes even more confusing. There were some challenges and some traumas, and maybe there was a bit of neglect or abuse. These create different lenses that we can look out of. Have you ever felt that there is like sometimes 2, 3, maybe 4 different versions of you inside, and they're all kind of battling for the top seat? I know it's challenging, it's really hard, and I just want to confirm to you, none of this is you. None of your thoughts are you. None of your reactions are really you. They're just programs that are existing within your physical body and within your mental space. Are we following? Does this make sense? I wonder how it would feel for you to begin to play around with the idea that what you think and feel about yourself and others is merely just a program that was installed within you at a moment in time when you were younger, when you maybe didn't have the wisdom or the capacity to truly understand how to navigate that properly. Because let's be honest, we haven't exactly been born into a world full of wisdom and gurus and elders who are supporting us along the way. We've all come into planet Earth blind. Our parents blind. And we're still living in a world where there are so many programs going on, both within us individually and also collectively across the world. And the reason why things feel so intense, confusing, mind-boggling at the moment is because we're in the times where a lot of programs have been, this is their time. This is the time where they're supposed to start falling away. And it can be extremely disorientating. I can never say this word. It can be really challenging when all of this stuff within us starts to break and it wants to move, but we don't know how to let go. We don't know how to allow these programs to fall away. And remember, that's all they are, they're programs. But I can tell you from my own personal experience, when some of these programs have begun to fall away or began to become so loud, it can be really challenging to let go of that, because the ego mind, our beautiful brain, wants to attach and cling. Because let's be honest, a lot of us fear death. Death is actually the most beautiful thing you can ever possibly wish to experience. You go back into such a huge amount of love. But we'll come on to that in another video as well. The power of your programming can really shape your worldview and your opinion of yourself. For the longest time, I felt broken. I thought I was an ugly duckling. I thought I was here to satisfy the needs of men, and that was generated because men continually kept abusing me. And my mum had programs running that men only want sex. She was in a challenging, abusive relationship, so her program was also influencing how I was being programmed. I'm really hoping that you're being able to follow along and catch the wave that I'm putting out for you. You may need to come back to this video and watch it again and again and again, maybe 7 times. Because it often takes us 7 times to see something, to hear something, for us to get the message. The power of our programming can shape how we view others. And I'm going to talk about, I'm not going to name this person, but for the sake of it, we'll just refer to him as Mr. Smith. This was somebody who I was in a relationship with. And this person loved me. And when I mean love, I mean this person really loved me. And you can feel, I can feel the weight of how that connection ended and moved on. Because I had programmings running about myself, that I was unlovable, I was broken, that I was this, that, and the other. When he chose to come on into my reality and chose to love me, all I could see was his brokenness. All I could see was him being wounded. I mean, what kind of person must he be in order to love this? If he really knew who I was, if he really knew the real me, he'd run a million miles away. And at the time, I knew that what I was feeling was false, and I knew that I wasn't seeing him clearly, but I couldn't get out of that. I didn't know how to break out of those programs. And eventually the relationship ended, it disconnected, and by the time I realized and was about to share with him, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry for not seeing you clearly. I actually do have so much love for you, but it's been hidden behind all these programs. He was already in another connection. And that was challenging. But it's okay. He was a very incremental part of my journey. And Mr. Smith, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for showing me what love actually feels like. My first proper experience, really. And showed me what love is willing to do for a person. Because before that, the program that I had running about love, which was initiated by my parents, was really anything but loving. And this isn't to call them out on their shit. In me calling them out on their programs, that's also me calling me out on the programs that I had and I've moved away from. The power of programming is next level. And it will shape the way that you look at yourself and the world. And the quickest way out of a program, in my experience, after lots of trial and error, is just to accept that it's there. Not needing to change it, not judging it, not criticizing it, just accepting it. It's there. For example, I had a program running where I felt unable to speak what I actually felt. And I kept trying to force this, but and every time that I went to speak my truth and it wasn't coming out, I would think, you flipping idiot, why can't you just? And then that opened up a doorway to so much negative thinking and self-shaming and pushing myself into this horrible corner. But the moment that I accepted that, I just can't get my words out and I can't speak up. Well, very quickly, actually, that program started to dissolve. It's in the resistance to viewing our programs as they are that keeps them strong, embedded within our being. If you don't want to look at or find it challenging to look at the fact that maybe you're a bit manipulative because you learned to be manipulative in your family home in order to get your needs met, or maybe you look at the fact that actually I can be a bit of a bully because actually my whole family was a bit of a bully, and actually I went into school where I was bullied, so I learned to adopt this way of being, and I can be a bit of a bully. Now, when you admit these things, your brain is going to go, no, you're not. I'm good. I'm this. I'm that. I'm this. Who is that that's talking? And I'm going to round it up here. Here's a tip on how to challenge your programming. Let's say you've got this voice in your head which, I am this, or you are this, for good or bad. I had a voice in my head for so long that was, I am an ascended master. I have come down here to save humanity all by myself. Who is it that thinks that? The voice goes, I do. Ask it, who is I? And you watch that brain go silent quicker than quicksand sinking. Who is I? And watch and see and feel and sense what comes through. Thanks for joining me today on the power of programming. I hope you've enjoyed this exploration and looking at the human from a completely different dimension. I do rely on your feedback. I want to create a community of beings on the path that are focused on liberating and empowering themselves outside of what their human programming currently dictates. Who is I? Have a great week. I'll see you next time.